Welcome to the channel, guys. My name is Jess. So Bitcoin has exploded in the last 48 hours, going all the way up to 110.5 thousand and potentially locking in a brand new weekly high. We'll be breaking it all down today, including the charts, the macro setup, and what this rally really means for where Bitcoin could be headed next. We'll also take a look at the short time frame price action, the key developments, key levels, and everything else that you need to be watching out for. Let's get into it. As always, before we dive in, make sure you guys smash that like button and subscribe to the channel to get regular Bitcoin analysis every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. And sign up to my free Telegram for more regular Bitcoin updates. If you're a trader and you're interested in joining my VIP trading channel, be sure to message me down below on Telegram. VIP gives you exclusive access to my personal trading setups with exact entry points, targets, and stop losses. Alright guys, so jumping into the charts, let's start off with the macro positioning of Bitcoin after this recent rally. So taking a look here at the weekly chart, we can see that Bitcoin has pretty much exploded in the last 48 to 24 even hours, to be honest. If we take a look at the daily chart, it has really been just yesterday that Bitcoin truly did the majority of the rallying, went all the way from $105,000 to $110,000, which is a massive climb for Bitcoin in a 24-hour period, about 4.5 to nearly 5%, right? So absolutely huge. And it has had massive effects on the high time frame charts. So moving into the last couple of weeks and really last month of price action, Bitcoin was in a very precarious and dangerous position. As you guys probably very well know if you've been watching my videos, we've been sitting right on the edge of the top here of this weekly range at 104.5 thousand, and we dipped below it multiple times, and really stressing the potential there that Bitcoin was really going to lose that level of macro support and potentially fall back below into this weekly range over here. But suffice to say, we've clearly bounced. So particularly in this most recent weekly candle close on Monday, where we had sort of the largest flush throughout this period below the weekly range, went all the way down to $100,000. Just as the weekly candle closed, once again, Bitcoin surged right up to close the weekly candle above 104.4 thousand. And in this subsequent week, or in the last 2 or 3 days since that weekly candle close, Bitcoin has rallied massively, right? So we've flushed out sort of the support there, tested it, and seen a massive bounce. And so that's, of course, had these really big implications on the high time frame charts, because what we can essentially see from the price action now and on this chart is that despite all the really large warning flags that we had popping up on this weekly time frame, potentially signaling a high time frame correction for Bitcoin, the buyers have successfully absorbed all of that sort of bearish pressure, right? Just taking a look at the RSI, for example, we have this instance of bearish divergence over here, right? There's lower highs against these higher highs created here on the weekly price action. And that was a really big warning sign as we were, testing and potentially losing that level of macro support. But what we can see here is that essentially, despite this bearish divergence, despite the increase in selling pressure, it has been absorbed, right? The macro level of support has been successfully defended, and all that bearish divergence took Bitcoin to do was retest macro support, and we bounced, right? Hence this massive rally. So essentially, the last couple of days of price action and this weekly candle close has really validated the macro narrative of still being bullish, right? And it has essentially eradicated the warning signs that we had here developing on these high time frame charts. Or at least that is for the time being, right? If Bitcoin goes on to crash below 104.4 thousand, that's going to be massively flipping this narrative, and all those red flags are going to start popping up all over again, right? But as of right now, and as of what this chart is showing us, we have successfully tested 104.4k and bounced on it as a level of macro support, thereby facilitating continued high time frame bullish narrative. Now keep in mind tonight, we also have CPI data coming out as well. So for those of us in Australia, that's at 10:30 p.m. And it does say that we are expecting it to be a little bit more bearish, or inflation is expected to be rising. But the fact that we've seen rallies across the market from Bitcoin, it's not only crypto, S&P 500 has been green for the last couple of days as well. Because of that, potentially there is, it's an indication that, we're actually expecting it to be a little bit more bullish than this. Potentially core inflation won't have risen, maybe it's stagnated, and potentially headline inflation is the same, stagnating, as opposed to what it's shown here, right, which is an increase in inflation, which should be bearish, right? So the fact that we're seeing a rally into CPI is a little bit of an indicator that people are expecting it to be bullish, and that's definitely something to be keeping in mind as we move into the next 24, 48 hours of price action, because if it's not more bullish than these forecasts and these consensuses, then there is a potential that we see a correction across the markets because, you know, the rally, well, the reason for the rally or the driver for the rally has been negated. So now that we understand the broader context of the price action, the macro positioning of Bitcoin, and the sort of economic environment that surrounds our current price action, let's dive into the smaller time frame charts and talk about everything that we need to be really watching out for in terms of what's going to happen next for Bitcoin, what's going to trigger a bullish continuation, what exactly we're looking for, and sort of the key levels here. So starting on the daily time frame, what we can essentially see from Bitcoin in the recent rally is the breakout from this downtrend that we had here on the daily time frame. If we take a look, we had 3 lower highs here on the price action. One starting off, of course, at the all-time high at 111.9 thousand or 112,000. The prior high before that at 109, and then of course this trigger level, this first change of character level at 106,000. So this was the one that we noted in the very last video, where if we were going to see a daily candle close above it, it would trigger a massive move for Bitcoin, which is pretty much exactly what we've seen, right? We've pushed above that level of resistance and finally flipped the charts here on the daily time frame to be printing higher highs in the price action. And so if we take a look at the most recent high that Bitcoin's broken out of, it essentially maps out the current range of price action that we're looking at to either trigger a bullish continuation or a bearish reversal, right? So that is this range over here. So starting at 109.3 and ranging up to, of course, the range high here for this small segment of price action at $112,000. So we can see here that even though Bitcoin is struggling a little bit to push past the sort of the buy side liquidity that exists over here, while we retain support here at 109.3 thousand, which we're currently doing, we're sort of prevented from a bearish correction. This is our sort of neutral territory on the daily chart. And of course, if we close the daily candle above $112,000, we push back into price discovery, where Bitcoin is very likely to experience a pretty explosive move upwards, right, as we retain or gather a new all-time high and target those sort of whole numbers moving forward. So 115,000, 120,000, 125, and so on and so forth. And otherwise, if we lose our current level of support, we could potentially experience a short time frame correction here to retest that change of character level, right? That really crucial support that we have here on this daily chart that flipped both the short time frame and the daily chart to being bullish at 106K. Now, if we zoom in a little bit further to the 4-hour chart, we can see exactly what level Bitcoin is currently rejecting off, and that is that prior high in this downtrend here at $110.7 thousand, the wick high, the buy side liquidity for that level that we can see on the daily time frame chart. And also, if we pull up the Smart Money Concepts indicator, we can see that liquidity zone that we're currently traveling in, right? So sort of further validation for the neutral territory that Bitcoin has right now, where falling below here, right, we potentially potentially experience a short time frame bearish correction to sort of retest that 106K trigger level, and otherwise pushing above that buy side liquidity there, moving up to $112,000, we could experience that rally to retest the prior all-time high and pushing above there, of course, into price discovery. So we're in that sort of neutral territory right now. We're chopping between those levels, and we're essentially waiting and seeing on these short time frame charts as to whether or not Bitcoin has the strength to continue on further upwards, at least right now. If we take a look at the chart structurally, we can see we've got 2 trend lines here, right? The one mapping out the price action from the local bottom at $100,500 and onwards, and we have the corresponding RSI uptrend here as well. Now on the RSI, we can see that currently Bitcoin is retesting that trend line. I think actually if we move the trend line up just a little bit for that second contact point, we have actually just dipped below that RSI trend line right now. So that's showing us that momentum is definitely slowing down as we move into this liquidity zone, and we can see that on the price action pretty obviously. But very likely if we close this next 4-hour candle close below that trend line here on the RSI, Bitcoin will go back down to retest the trend line here on the price action at the very least, and falling below that again with that horizontal trigger point as well, we're likely to see a very short-term correction to $106,000. And this, just to reiterate, is sort of the key validation that we have for the bullish narrative, right? It's the first change of character that we had here in breaking out of this downtrend, right? The very first lower high that Bitcoin needed to push above was $106,000. So as long as we retain movement above that, we're still traveling, creating higher highs. All we've done is gone on to retest support. And the key trigger that we have is this liquidity zone on the 4-hour chart and 112 on the daily time frame. Alrighty guys, that is a wrap on the analysis for today. Thank you for tuning in for another episode. If you enjoyed the video or you learned something, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel to get regular Bitcoin analysis every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. And join my free Telegram for more regular Bitcoin updates. If you're interested in my VIP trading channel, don't forget to message me down below on Telegram. VIP gives you exclusive access to my personal trading setup, so the exact entry points, targets, and stop losses. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!